Welcome everybody to a brand new episode of IDTALK4ED Live, the show for the unsung heroes of education. I'm your host, Kwame Sarfo-Mensah. And if this is your first time tuning in to the podcast, I welcome you and I hope that today's episode is one that you find informative, enlightening, and as always, insightful. And if you are a returning listener or viewer of the podcast, as always, it's great to have you back. And I hope that today's episode is one that's going to keep you coming back for more. As always, if you are on YouTube, make sure you hit that red subscribe button so that you can get future notifications of new episodes. If you're tuning in from Apple Podcast, Spotify, or those other streaming platforms, make sure you subscribe there as well. And if you would like to make a donation towards our Identity Talk platform, we do accept donations through Cash App using the handle money sign IDTALK4ED or Venmo using the handle at Kwame SM. That's at symbol KWAMESM. And of course, to catch up on past episodes of the podcast, and we have about 140 plus of those episodes, you can go to our main website at IDTALK4Educators.com. And as always, thank you for your support. I'm still recovering from my long trip in Vietnam. I was honored and just blessed to spend almost a week in Hanoi, Vietnam for the first ever in-person ALOC conference. And there were just so many wonderful things happening during those 3 days of learning and just community building. And just to give y'all a heads up, these next several episodes will feature a lot of international educators, many of whom I was able to meet at the conference. And then there are a few who are just from my ALOC family. So just want to give y'all a heads up. It's going to be a lot of different flavors coming through over the next few episodes, and hopefully you all look forward to it. But today I want to introduce you all to someone who's a part of the ALOC family, somebody who is a phenomenal educator, someone who I've had a chance to really get to know over the past year plus. And she's got a dope story, starting all the way from Memphis and then going around the world, and then now she's out in DC, doing her thing. Outside of being an educator, she also a world-class swimmer. And we'll talk more about that when we get her on. But without further ado, I want to bring on my home girl, Marla Hunter Hooper, to the podcast to talk about her story. So hopefully y'all enjoy this one as much as I will. All right, let's bring her on. Hey.
Hey.
What's up?
Not much. Still processing from the conference, trying to get myself back into real world. That's about it. That's where I am. Yeah.
I'm in that same boat too. There are just so many things that happen, so many stories that we're able to be exposed to. A lot of joy and then some pain as well. But all in all, it all made for a great weekend. So I'm just happy
Absolutely.
to have been a part of it. I feel like we made history that weekend. I'm going to keep saying it.
We did.
And I'm already looking forward to a cry next year.
That's going to be
Woo!
special. That's going to be real special. Yeah.
February 2025 need to come on.
I know. It'll be, but here's the thing, it'll be here with the quickness. It'll
Yeah,
be.
yeah, for sure. It's about you today. Uh,
Here.
as always, on this podcast, we always like to start from the beginning. I want to give you a chance to just share in as much detail as possible who or what inspired you to want to become an educator.
Well, to be honest, I like to, well, you know me, I like to be honest, but like I said at the conference, this year, my word for the year is truth. And so I'm going to live
Mm,
in it and stand in it, especially when it comes to this question about who or what inspired me to become an educator. This was the furthest from my mind. Like, I knew I wanted to work with children, but I thought, like, in typical West Indian, African fashion. You think that in order to do things, it's either doctor, lawyer, architect, engineer. So I thought, okay, well, I love sciences, I love math, and I want to work with kids. I'll do medicine. So for the first 3 years of undergrad, I was biochem pre-med. And then by year three, legit, I wasn't going to class anymore. I had decided mentally I was dropping out because at this time I was also a full-time lifeguard and swim instructor. I had done that since I was age 15. That was my first real job. And I told my mom, I was like, Mommy, I don't want to do this anymore. I could be a lifeguard and swim coach for the rest of my life. Like, people always need lifeguards and swim coaches, and I'm Black. They'll want me. And she didn't disagree with me. She said yes. She said, but you at least, it would be nice for you to at least have some kind of degree so that if something happens, you always have something. So my mom is a psychologist. She gave me a Myers-Briggs test, which I've taken them before. And my thing that came up is that I'm a good listener, but I'm great at teaching. And she's like, well, maybe you need to switch to education. And I was like, no, I don't want to be a teacher. She's like, Marla, you realize you teach almost every week anyway as a swim coach. You are teaching. And at church, you do work with the kids. You are teaching. So you're already in the field. It's just going to look different. I went back to school and I changed my major. And it was basically like a start over. So instead of graduating in 4 years, I graduated in 6 years because I had to add on the two extra years because I was changing a whole new program. It was the best thing I could have ever done because it has opened the door for me in so many situations that I don't think I probably would be as happy if I had gone into medicine than if I didn't change trajectories and went into education. And people are like, well, do you feel like a waste of time? No, because, you find out things and realize, okay, this path isn't for me. Do something
Oh,
else.
I'm kind of surprised because, I mean, just to give the audience context, like your mama, she an educator herself.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, Dr. Hunter. Put
yeah,
some respect on the name, right? Like 30 plus years, teach at a community college level. So
yeah.
I'm thinking to myself, okay, you see your mom as an educator. I'm thinking that's your birthright. You automatically gonna go right down that lane.
No, she actually thought that I was going to go into computers
Oh,
because because my dad is he's a retired senior computer analyst for Memphis Light Gas and Water. There were times when I was in like elementary school and grade school, my mom would pull me out of school. Like there were times where I didn't go to school and my mom would enroll me into classes at one of the schools or anything like that to do like computer tech because she knew I loved computers. She thought that maybe I was going to go into computers. And I told her, I enjoy working with computers. I enjoy programming. I do all for fun. If I had to do it as a career, I would hate it.
okay.
So yeah, she thought I was going to go computer way, some kind of engineering, computer engineering or something like that. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that.
Just as a pastime, not a career.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I know you started to talk a little bit about your college experience, but I want to just go back a little bit to your K to 12 because during K to 12, I know for a lot of us, it's a lot of ebbs and flows that happen during those years. So I want to learn from you if that was the case in your situation. Were there any struggles that you dealt with as far as embracing who you were, either as a learner or as a human being?
For me, it was both. I had already embraced myself as a learner. So, being first generation American, my parents are Jamaican. There was school after school. It was even a point to when I was in grade three, my mom opened up her nonprofit called Personal and Career Development. She would do tutoring for kids after school, and she really started it for my brother and I. Not that we needed tutoring,
Sure.
But the fact that the tutoring can help, can push you along. And she did like an summer camp, she did an academic summer camp. So this is before, like, people, most times summer camps, you went to go play. No, in the morning we had our academics, and then in the afternoon it's where you enjoyed all the other things. So schooling was important. I knew that from the get-go. So in school, I was very studious. I knew there's a time and place for everything. But because of that, I got teased a lot. I was bullied a lot in school because my counterparts, they were like, this doesn't make sense. Like, you need a life. And I was like, I thought I was having a life. When I think about it, I used to look at the things that my peers would get and think they had more fun than I did, not realizing that my parents were putting certain things into place. Even though I went to from grades 3 through 8 in all Black Christian private school, I learned a lot about myself. I used to cry all the time at school because I was getting teased all the time. My books and swimming and piano, they were my escape. I remember one of my classmates saying to me, and I don't know where this person is right now in life, but I remember my classmate laughing and like, "You're not Black." And I was like, "What?" First of all,
Mm.
I'm darker skinned than you are. I'm the darkest in this classroom. How am I not Black? Because it didn't make sense to me. And then two, my rebuttal to him was, if being Black means acting like you, then maybe I'm not.
Shots fired.
Yeah, yeah. And like, to me, that made sense, because if being Black means treating people that are supposed to be Black like how you're treating me, then maybe I'm the wrong type of Black. Maybe maybe I'm different. I really held on to that for as long as I could remember. And it really helped to shape who I am now, and how when I did become an educator, how I treated my own student, and
Right.
how I would help my students to treat one another, because kids can be mean. Kids,
Yes,
like,
they can.
kids can be mean. It's my struggles in school that help to make me stronger and make me be who I am today, with not saying not caring, but more so being honest and not caring so much about what you think. Because at
Got
that point in time, I cared a lot about what people thought.
Okay. Like I could even sense parallels between what you went through in school and then what I went through in school. It was a lot of, bullying in my case as well. Being, I think, the darkest person in the entire school.
Mhm.
Both parents from coming from Ghana, not having an English name. So like there was a lot going on. So I could feel everything that you're saying. But I want to talk about this love for swimming you have, because honestly, you don't see a lot of sisters getting swimming like that. For as long as I've been on this earth, the narrative has been, black folks don't know how to swim. Like
Yeah.
so to kind of see you be so into swimming and to be a lifeguard for as long as you have, that's an anomaly in more ways than one. So I want to talk about that. Like, how did you fall in love with swimming in the first place?
I think I fell in love with swimming the first time I went to a swimming class. My mom taught, so it was in the summer. The daycare that I went to, they took us to Mason YMCA, which is no longer open. They closed it probably, I want to say, like 10 years now. So the Mason YMCA was the YMCA, was basically, well, really, it was the only YMCA left in the South that still did boarding. It still had like a boarding part for men
Oh wow.
to stay. So, and it was in the heart of Memphis, in the University of Memphis area. So the daycare I went to took me and took a bunch of us to swim. My mom told me that I came home and I was about 4. And I said, "Mommy, I drowned today. And I had so much fun." And she was like, "What?"
What?
So when she found out what happened was that I said I wanted to jump in the water in the 10 feet, and I jumped in and I sunk, and somebody came and got me. And I thought that that was the process. And so I drowned today.
Oh
and
wow.
and that's what catapulted me for doing swimming. And so it's funny, the place where I initially learned how to swim and took classes. And then, even with the school that I went to, we would go to another YMCA and take classes. And so I was in swim lessons, just not in the summer, but in the winter, in the fall. So I was doing swimming year round. When I aged out of swim lessons, like I got to the furthest you can go, the only thing left for me to do was to do lifeguard training and then get a job as a lifeguard. And so the same Mason YMCA where I initially drowned and learned how to swim was the same place that gave me a job. It was a full circle moment, because and what also happened is my first swim instructor, she would then became my colleague. So I'm working side by side with her at
Wow.
age 15, 16, where she had taught me from ages like 4 to 10 swimming. I didn't stop. And the reason why my mom put my brother and I in swimming is that you would think she's Jamaican, she would know how to swim. My mother didn't know how to swim. My
Mm,
dad did, or my
okay.
dad does, but my mom didn't know how to swim. So she was like,
Okay.
I don't know how to swim. I want my children to know how to swim.
Got it. Now, this is I guess an off-topic question, but I'm curious to get your assessment on what we saw. Was it last year? So Montgomery Riverfront Brawl. As a swim instructor, as a lifeguard, and I want you to be honest. How proud were you of the brother that swam all the way to help out that brother, the security guard who was getting jumped by these white folks? How proud were you to see that brother swimming, the form and everything?
So I was very proud. Now I will tell you, his technique was not accurate.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
that's okay, because what people have to fail to realize is that he was open water swimming, number one. So that's current. And he was swimming against the current. Number
Oh,
two, he was fully clothed. So that means he had on jeans. So his clothes were heavy. So
and he
that
swimming
means,
against the current.
right. So that means that there was drag on him being able to swim. And then when he
Okay.
got there to the dock, now you have to have upper body strength to be able to pull yourself up out of the water and then get ready to fight. His clothes are heavy. He has on shirts, undershirt, jeans, and shoes. And he pulled himself up.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I was very proud that day when I saw
Yeah.
that, because those are things you're like you are actually taught when you get to a certain part in swimming. You're
Hmm.
actually taught how to do those things, to swim with your clothes on, how to take off your clothes when you're in the water, and like tie them a certain way and blow up the clothes so it can be like a life jacket
Like a
ish.
flotation device.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the fact that he did that, one, he had pure adrenaline on his side, because
Hmm.
I know he was tired, but he kept going. And that water is muddy. So you can't see. You can't see the bottom. So I was very proud. I was very proud. Yeah, people don't
Yeah.
realize how much probably went into what he was doing. Like, they're just seeing this teenager, probably 20 something year old, swimming across and going to help. But when you take it and look at everything that was going against him with actually doing all the swimming, it's a lot.
I mean, shoot, the way you breaking it down right now I realize it's an even more remarkable feat than I had thought before. Like I thought it was amazing what he did, but when you break it down the way you did, detail to detail, I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
it's a
That's
lot.
a lot. But you know what? It's good because it's a metaphor for the work that we do
Mhm.
as educators.
Because it's
Even
meant.
with everything that weighs us down, the disappointments, the constant injustices, we still have to find a way to persist.
Mhm.
And I think seeing that brother swim the way he did in order to aid another brother, that's essentially what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that part is
Because
what I keep thinking of.
we swim through muddy waters all the time.
That's right.
Like, we are swimming through muddy waters every single day. We do it, the majority of us do it because we love it. Now,
That's right.
yes, are there some who do it for the paycheck? But for the most part, the majority of us do it because we love what we do.
Very true. Very, very true. I want to switch gears here. So you get through undergrad, you eventually get a master's, and then, you start teaching for a few years. I'm assuming you're still in Memphis, right?
No, no. So when
Uh,
I'm in Nashville,
Nashville,
uh-huh.
still in the state.
Yeah, I taught for a little bit in Memphis, and then like it was never my intention to stay in Memphis.
Sure.
So I did an interview over the phone for a school, and they had a permanent position that would turn into a full-time position in the fall. So, and the principal hired me over the phone. Now, mind you, she can't see what I look like. All she knows my name is Marla Hunter. And so I go up to Nashville because contract has already been signed, all of that. And I go into the building and I introduce myself to the secretary. Miss Bomar is her name. And Bomar was like, "How can I help you?" I was like, "Yes, Black lady. Yes, I'm Marla Hunter. I'm here for the position, the first grade position." And she said, "You're Marla Hunter?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she just laughed. Like it was one of those, it wasn't an evil laugh. It was one of those smirk, like, this is gonna be good. This is the best humor. She's like, "Oh," like it's the look on her face that this is, and she's like, "Oh boy, I don't think she knows what she did." And then I realized that the principal at the time, white older lady, very biased. I don't want to say that she is racist, but she has a lot of prejudice tendencies, and that
Sure.
shows with how she would treat the children or talk to the kids. So you could tell that when she saw me, my voice and my name didn't match up with what I looked like. And by that time, it was too late.
Mm-hmm. All
So
right. So then how did that year go? Now
it was,
that,
it was fantastic.
all right.
Because the thing is that this particular class had gone through 5 subs before me. And I remember I'm sitting in the classroom observing because the sub was there. One of the little boys, he looked at me and he was like, "Who are you?" And I just looked at him and I smiled. And he was like, "Oh, yeah, this is first grade. Oh, y'all, she's about to be our new sub. We gonna run you off just like we did the rest of them." And
Wow.
I was like, "Oh, baby, you." And the sub who was there, she was just like, and I said, "Baby, you don't know me. You don't know anything about me." I said, "Do you know where I'm from?" And they were like, "Oh." I said, "I'm from Memphis, by way of Jamaica. Do you know? You don't know me?" And he was like, "Oh." But I'll tell you, those parents loved me. They had no issues at all, or I should say, all the issues that they were having before. Because, as I say, very WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get. How I am in the classroom when you're not here is the same way I am when you are here. And policy for the school might be you can't just come in, but policy for me in my classroom, you want to stop in and check on your children, they're yours. Come on. And when I would tell them that, they were like, "What? I can come up?" "Yeah, come in anytime you want." And so I had a couple parents that would do that. They would come in and job through and to see, because they would always get calls about their children. And here comes this new teacher. She's not calling. And if she does call us to tell us good things, what's really happening?
That's right.
And when they would come in and see how things were, no problem. So I ended up having a job for the next school year and the next school year and the next school year. Yeah, those, it's funny, but those kids, I mean, they're not kids now; they're adults. Some of them still reach out and call me.
They probably got their own kids and their own
Mhm,
families.
mhm,
Mm-hmm.
and talking about the things that I instilled in them when they were first graders, kindergartners, third graders. That's what they're instilling into their own children at this point.
So this season, Identity Talk for Educators Live will be including ad spots for businesses, products, and events that are adding significant value to their communities. And here's the catch: you don't have to be an educator or an education based business to be a part of this. We're looking for people who are just doing great work in the community, and we want to use our platform as a way to amplify their work. So if you are an entrepreneur or you know of an entrepreneur who is doing just that, bring them in our direction. Have them reach out to us. If they want to learn more about their ad spots and how they can get themselves promoted on this platform, they can contact myself, Kwame at IdentityTalk4Educators.com. I'll say it one more time. It is Kwame at IdentityTalk4Educators.com. Hope to hear from you, and let's keep on amplifying our work and building each other up. That's powerful. But then eventually you end up going abroad.
Yeah,
So
I got tired, but here, because the
yeah.
thing is that I wanted to go. It was initially my goal to go abroad when I first graduated.
Okay.
And I signed I was going to go to South Korea, and my mom was like, "But you haven't done anything. You haven't taught yet." And she said, "At least give it a year or two before you go." But then, sometimes you just get complacent and then you end up not going. And so I ended up not going. So it wasn't until like 7 years later when I was like, "Okay, I can't do this anymore. It's time to go." And that's when I got my contract and I moved to China. I enjoyed where I was in China because I was in Shenzhen, and Shenzhen is more of an expat city, but I didn't enjoy China because you had a lot of people who were still very prejudiced. I remember
Right.
the first time I tried to catch the bus to do, like, the bus driver literally drove past me.
Uh-uh.
I was at the bus stop and it was the right bus stop. The bus driver literally, you could see him slowing down at first, but then when he saw it was me and there was nobody else there, sped up and
Mm.
went past me. Another thing is, like, if I would get a DD, which is a taxi, the
Mm-hmm.
first question would be like, "Where are you from? Are you from South Africa?" Why South Africa of all places? But I'm like, "No, I'm from the US." "No, we're in Africa." "I'm from the US. I'm from the US." And so they couldn't get over the fact that I'm not African by birth and that I am a US citizen. Yeah. So I only spent about a year and a half in China. I was like, "Yeah, it's time to go." And when I left there, I went to Nigeria, which I loved Nigeria.
Okay.
I loved Nigeria. It was great because the head of school at that time, he was purposeful. He did not have a lot of teachers of color on his campus. His name is Wallace Ting, Dr. Wallace Ting. He made a conscientious decision that he was going to hire more people of color. So it was a huge influx at the school, the cohort that I was there, that most of us that were hired were people of color. The school had never seen that before, never experienced that before. You had a huge Nigerian population. They were first generation American, so their parents had moved back or they were part of the UN or the US embassy, or you had
Right.
kids from all over. They had never had black teachers before in their life. So now all of a sudden they had black teachers, they had Hispanic teachers, they had Spanish teachers, because we did have a couple from Spain. That was when they realized that some of their previous teachers were racist,
Mm. Okay.
because now the parents saw the difference between brown and black teachers who treated their children like they were their children instead of treating their kids like other.
Got it. Got it. And then from there
From
you
there, I
end
went
up
in the UAE.
mm. And how was that?
Ah, I was there for a year. I think by that time I was like, my brother and sister-in-law had my nephew, and so I was missing him growing up, seeing him via FaceTime, but missing the stages of him growing up.
Mm.
And then also during this time of my life, I was just like, the UAE wasn't for me because it felt like a very Instagram kind of lifestyle. And I had moved past that part of my life where
Sure.
everything doesn't have to be showy. I don't always have to be going to a yacht party. I don't have to be doing all these things.
Mm-hmm.
It's great to have a good time, but I don't need it in the manner that you're you're giving it to me, I'll bow out after this year. The UAE taught me a lot about myself. I gained a lot of friendships that I still have to this day. It just wasn't a place that I wanted to stay. Now, a lot of people love it there, but it just wasn't for me. And so when people say, "Oh, I want to move to the UAE to teach," okay, but there are other places.
And I noticed that too, like UAE, Dubai, like that area.
Hmm.
Like a lot of people end up going there to teach. Like, what's the main attraction there? What draws people in to
The
those
thing is,
places?
they think it's the money. So there was a point in time where the UAE, like you were making bank in the UAE. And it's something that I have to explain to people. There are international schools and there are schools that call themselves international schools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, talk about it.
But then you also have local schools that hire expat teachers. So a lot of times when people were initially going to the UAE, they were working at Emirate schools. So they are schools where only Emirati children were going to most of the time. And so they got expat teachers to come and teach at the schools. Those schools, because they're funded by the Emirati government, they were paying a decent amount of money. Like they were paying a lot of money. But what was happening is you also had a period of time where people would go there, and because you can get your own, again, credit system is different depending on how much money you make. It's easy for you to get an Emirati credit card, and the
Okay.
credit cards are no interest or either low interest or no interest. Yeah.
What?
Mhm. So people would go there, make their money, have credit cards, they would pay off all their stuff back home. And some people, once everything was paid off, they'd leave the UAE and would have debt, not realizing that you would get put on a list. But they're like, I'm not going back anyway. So because you would have those issues, they cut down on how much it is that they were paying teachers. So you do have some true international schools, like you'll have British schools, Canadian schools, and the only true like American international school there that is like not owned by anybody from the Middle East area, ASD, American School of Dubai.
Okay.
So that's the only school that is like not Emirati owned, not Saudi owned or anything like that.
Okay. All right. What would you say was the biggest lesson you learned about yourself during all those years abroad?
Don't take things so seriously.
Mm,
But then also it was make sure you're making all the connections possible,
right.
because it's those connections that helped me with my education consulting business. So I already had this business before moving internationally, but then being able to now do this work internationally and still making these connections along the way, and then deciding, okay, well, I'm going to move back stateside now. I need to still hold on to these connections so that I can still do the work both stateside and internationally.
Okay. And this is a perfect segue. So I want you to talk about Live.Love.Teach. So that's the name of your consulting business.
Hmm.
This is how you're able to do the work stateside, but also internationally. So just talk to the audience about what Live, Love, Teach is and what's the mission.
So it started off, the name started off, I live, I love, I teach. And I was like,
Mm,
oh, that's a mouthful. So then, then I cut it probably like 2000, what was it, 2013. I dropped the I's and did live, love, teach. And it's exactly what it is, because I live this teaching thing. I love this teaching thing, and I'm going to continue to do it in any shape, form, or fashion. And that's my mission, vision, and goal. I live and love what I do, and that's teaching, being an educator. And this is not meaning like just for students or little ones, but it's also for adults. So
Yeah.
as I got to a certain point, I realized, okay, I want to be able to reach more students. And the only way I'm able to do that is reach the educators first. So, how can I reach the educators so that we can fix what's happening in the classroom so that our children have a chance? That's my goal with my business and everything that I do. Making sure that knowing that I can reach more students by reaching the educators first.
So this season, Identity Talk for Educators Live will be including ad spots for businesses, products, and events that are adding significant value to their communities. And here's the catch: you don't have to be an educator or an education based business to be a part of this. We're looking for people who are just doing great work in the community, and we want to use our platform as a way to amplify their work. So if you are an entrepreneur or you know of an entrepreneur who is doing just that, bring them in our direction. Have them reach out to us. If they want to learn more about their ad spots and how they can get themselves promoted on this platform, they can contact myself, Kwame at identitytalkforeducators.com. I'll say it one more time. It is Kwame at identitytalkforeducators.com. Hope to hear from you. And let's keep on amplifying our work and building each other up. And then, in addition to you doing Live, Love, Teach, you eventually decide, all right, I want to work in academia.
Mhm.
And so I'm wondering what prompted you to make that transition from being in the classroom to now working with young adults at the university level.
So I knew that I didn't want to stay in the classroom forever. And of course, this again with the process of being able to reach more students, I need to reach the teachers first. This meant that I had to transition. Now, funny enough, my mom was always trying to get me to go into higher ed, but I was like, yeah, I don't know. And then when I first got the job in higher ed, it's funny. Again, here's the connection here. So Reem
Mm-hmm.
and I worked together in the UAE doing some things with Kevin. And so that's how I met Reem. I met Reem through Kevin because I was doing consulting work for Kevin. Reem and I were both doing consulting work for Kevin. And so that's the connection. So when I moved back stateside, Reem hit me up and she was like, would you like to have an adjunct faculty position in STEM? And I was like, STEM? Yeah, of course. So, and she's like, yeah, at JHU. Mind you, I was not paying attention to initials. All I saw was adjunct faculty position in STEM. And it's not until I had the interview that I realized, oh, I'm going to be working at Hopkins.
John Hopkins University. Get
Right.
out of here.
Right. And so it was like, oh shoot. All right, then yeah, let's do this. And this was during pandemic that I started doing it. So my initial transition into higher ed, it was working adjunct faculty, the STEM program, teaching educators STEM how to be able to teach it culturally relevant in a culturally relevant manner with Johns Hopkins. And so I finished my 3 years with the program with Hopkins, and then we shifted over to American University, which is where I am now. And so I do both math, STEM, ELA, both elementary, secondary for pre-service educators at the master's
Mm.
level. And I absolutely love it. It becomes hard sometimes. And this is the first moment, like last week, I realized where I was with it only because of the state of education where we are now. Because the practitioners I'm working with this semester, they are, this is their first year in the classroom by themselves. So they're no longer with a mentor teacher. They have their own classroom. They are elementary school teachers, either upper elementary or they are early childhood. But the classrooms are compartmentalized and that doesn't make sense to me. So here I am. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so you mean to tell me that at the lower elementary level, which is which is generally like, okay, you're a generalist at that time. You're teaching all the subjects. They're compartmentalizing that early.
Yeah. So here we are, the first week of class, about like 4 weeks ago. And my teachers are telling me the assignments that they have to turn in, they don't know how they're going to get them done and actually put them into practice in the classroom. I'm like, what do you mean? That doesn't make, what are you talking about? And they're like, last week, Thursday, we were talking about it again. Like, I have students that are teaching like first and second grade. One student, he's teaching Spanish and social studies. Yeah, the way you're looking is how I was looking at him. I was like, how do you even what? I have some that are teaching in pre-K, English and social studies, or math and science. So I was like, okay, well, we can get this STEM stuff done. No, miss, because I don't teach science until May.
Wait, but school year typically ends
They
a month later. So you mean to tell me that you're only teaching science for a month?
they taught science September, and it was, some of them talked about it was only like 2 weeks, and then they're teaching again in May. And here I am, and I said, I really feel sorry for you. I feel bad for this generation of teachers because you all have no creativity, and then your students don't know have any creativity. You all use slide decks for everything. When do you have time to get in the floor and to help them learn? And they were explaining to me how jam-packed their day is. I mean, because I remember when I first started, even up to when I stopped being out of the classroom, that I had a schedule. But it may be I have a 90-minute math block, I have ELA, I have science, social studies. Make your schedule and figure out how to fit it in. Like, I had the leeway to do it. No, they are given a script or given so much of a schedule that they're told when to do this, told when to do phonics, told when to do this, so there is no time to actually have fun and enjoy.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the worries I have about this generation of teachers. And I mean, you and I, we're around the same age. So we came at a time where it was all about NCLB.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like you had to go through teaching prep program. You had to pass your licensure test. So for me, in my case, I had to take the praxis.
Mhm.
I had to take like 3 or 4 praxis tests before I can get my license. And then
Mhm.
on top of that, I still had to do a practicum and show my professor that I could teach before I even stepped foot in the classroom alone as a lead teacher. So the process was very rigorous for me, and I'm sure it was for you as
Yeah.
well. And I can remember starting off in a charter school. My first few years were in charter schools where we didn't have enough textbooks for students. So you had to make copies, you had to supplement, you had to look for resources and just make do with what you had. And I think that's where the innovation and creativity took over in my case. So then when I finally got to a district where I had a scope of sequence already laid out for me, I
Mhm.
had textbooks, I had all these resources. It felt weird to be in that space because I had gone all these years kind of just relying on standards and just using that as a guide to just create my own resources and curriculum materials. So to have it handed to me, I didn't know what to do with myself. It just felt so unnatural. So now to be in a generation where teachers don't know where to start and they have all these kids in front of them,
They
it
don't know
is
where to
very
start.
scary.
They don't know where to start. Some of them don't know how to write a proper lesson plan because the lesson plans are already done. And so I'm like, some of them don't know how to do small groups. Like, talk about small groups. So they were like, yeah, we have intervention and small groups. I said, those are the same. It's the same. So intervention is your small. No, not for our school. Our intervention, they have a program that they already have, and then they want us to do small groups. I was like, that's not what this is. Like, so yeah, yeah. Like, I'm telling you, last week, Thursday, I left class feeling like I didn't know what was happening in the world of education.
Oh wow. You know what? If we open this can of worms, we'll be here for another hour.
Yeah.
So I'm about to ask you this question off air, off camera, because yeah, it's crazy right here.
It's a lot. And so, like, I find myself a lot of times worrying about the state of education, is where we are right now. Yeah, I worry about it. And so then my teachers ask me about teaching internationally. And then I have to tell them, I said, it's wonderful. I said, but there are pros and cons to it, just like everything else. I said, because if you are a brown and black individual, you have to keep in mind that you have people who have left their home countries who may be other. And because there might not always be checks and balances as far as how people treat you, they get away with everything. Now you have to be careful with where you're going to decide to live. You have to do research on the school that you want to be at, but also know that you have to decide when you're done with work, you're done with work.
It's a totally different world. And the one thing I would add is this: before you even decide to go abroad, you have to keep in mind, if the goal for you is to travel to different countries and teach in different countries, you have to be able to adapt. You have to be able
Oh,
to
yes.
read curriculum, because you might go to one school that's an IB school, then you might go to another school that might go by the Cambridge model. You may go to another school that might go by Common Core, just like in the States. Not every school's the same.
Mm-mm.
And in order for you to survive, you have to have the ability to read, but also understand curriculum and be able to connect that curriculum to what you're doing within your subject area.
And then be
That
flexible.
and be flexible. That's skill. That
And
is a skill.
a lot of them that are coming through now, like, and I had to tell them, I said, you all are so liberal with your way of thinking. I said, but when it comes to education, you all have blinders on. Like, you straight and narrow. Like, this is it. What happened to your liberalism with everything else you do in life? You need to be applying that to your classroom as well. And their thing is, well, people are always coming in our classroom, but if you're teaching and the kids are passing, nobody's going to check you.
Right.
So I asked the question, if you all could have your dream dream classroom, what would it be? And I had a student that said, man, a unit where, like, for example, the solar system, and it was intertwined into every single subject. And he's just going through, and I just look at him and I shake my head and I start laughing. He was like, Professor, I said, why are you laughing? I said, because what you're talking about is normal. That's what I did. I said, he's like, what? I said, what you are saying that you dream of was the life that I lived as an educator.
Yeah.
There's National Poultry Day and National Pancake Day. So do you know that I did a unit on National Pancake and Poultry Day, and I intertwined that in all my subjects? I got batter from Waffle House. I got Tyson's Chicken to donate chicken to my classroom. The grocery store donated fruit. I said, and I cooked in my classroom. My kindergartners are helping me. First graders are helping me. And we're learning fractions and we're doing all of this. And by the end, we have a whole meal.
Boom.
And my principal didn't say anything about it, because did the standards get taught? Yes. Could they pass the test? Yes. Did everything get done? Yes.
But you know what? You said something. Were the standards taught? Were they covered? And here's the thing: if you don't even know the standards,
Ugh.
if you don't have the content knowledge to be able to articulate what exactly you're teaching and how it connects to the standards, you don't have leverage. And consequently, that's why administrators, instructional coaches, whoever is supervising you, will continue to come into your classroom and interrogate you and wonder what's going on, because you don't have the ability to communicate what's happening.
I told them, when people come into your classroom, put them to work. They're like, what? I said, they're in your classroom. Nobody should just be sitting down in your classroom just watching you. They're like, what? I said, whenever my principal came into my room, or anybody that came into my room, first of all, my room is an open door policy, so you can come whenever you want to. But whenever I had observations, I taught my students how to get whomever that's in the classroom involved with what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
You have to teach them how to do these things. They hadn't heard of it. I said, you don't want them coming in. So do the things, do the things that where they'll know that you're teaching and they don't have to come in.
All right. Like I said, we're gonna have to table this discussion for off camera because there's a lot to unpack here, a lot to unpack, and I feel for some of your students, I really do.
I
But
feel for them.
let's end with this, right? And this is the question of the podcast: how do you, Marla, stay true to the teacher in you?
I try my best to live what it is that I teach. Being an educator is hard, and that's on any level. So, whether you're a school counselor, an administrator, instructional coach, classroom teacher, whatever it is, being in the field of education is hard. And for me, in order to stay true to it, it also means being honest about the things that are happening and not happening, and then figuring out, okay, well, I can fix this, but I might not be able to fix that. And if I can't fix that, who can I call on to help me do what needs to be done? And having like people like you in my back pocket, knowing that, okay, well, if I can't do this, I at least know I can call on all of these people here to help me get through, because it's not a one person job.
Not at all. It's very much a communal effort, and
Mhm.
that's what makes it work. And that's how we have to treat it because with all the problems that are going on, not one person can solve all these problems.
Mhm.
Not one person can deal with all these injustices and eradicate them. You need a community to back you up and help you with that. So that's real. All right, Marla. Ooh, man, we could talk all day.
I know.
We really could, but I know that we got things we got to do in our
Yeah,
respective homes, and I want to make sure I respect the time. But listen, sis, I appreciate you as always for coming
absolutely.
through and chatting with me. And just to let folks know, how can they connect with you and learn about Live, Love, Teach, and all the other services you provide?
I like to keep it simple now, and that's easy. Google me. Literally,
Mm,
literally. Google Marla Hunter. I am the first face that pops up now, and I'm probably, I think, the only black one that comes up. So when you Google Marla Hunter, you'll see all of my stuff.
trust, when I was doing research for this episode, you were definitely the only black person that came up named Marla Hunter. And there were a whole bunch of Marla Hunters there, but they didn't have no melanin. I can tell you
Right,
that much.
right.
So you ain't lying. You definitely ain't lying. Yeah. And listen, and I'm gonna say this on the podcast. If you are in, talk to your students now. If you're in Professor Hunter's class, you want some extra credit, go ahead and leave a review of the podcast. You could watch one episode out of 140 plus.
There we
You can
go.
even watch this episode with your professor on it and just leave a review. And that's my word. So
Yep,
make sure y'all do that. Make sure y'all support. But most importantly, make sure y'all continue to grow as educators and make sure that you really stay true and honor this craft, because that's what's going to allow you to have longevity. You have to respect the craft and honor it. And the more you do that, the more success you'll attain.
absolutely, absolutely.
All right, sis. So we're gonna do this again another time, as always.
Sounds good to me.
All right. You have a
All
good
right,
rest of the day.
you too.
All right. We about to wrap up another episode of IDTALK Educators Live. And as always, wish you all good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are in the world. And we're gonna do this again another time. Peace out, y'all.